such long-awaited embrace. Our people are returning home to Ukraine from Russian captivity. Donald Trump has already announced new demands for Iran and the blue and yellow show in Hungary despite the ban. We'll be talking about this and more right now. Hello friends, I'm Irina Prokofieva and this is TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch the broadcast and be sure to comment on what you found most interesting. Let's get started. What people? Hello dear friend. With these words, the self-proclaimed president of Belarus, Lukashenko, greeted the special representative of the United States, Keith Kellogg. Kellogg announced his trip to Minsk 3 days ago, but at that time he did not specify any dates or agenda. Belarusian media report that the topics of their talks included Belarusian-American relations, international issues, and the overall situation in the world. Reuters had previously written that this visit could open the way to a ceasefire between Kyiv and Moscow, whose negotiations remain at a deadlock. Kellogg himself, in private conversations, suggested that the trip might help initiate peace talks. Keith Kellogg became the highest-ranking American official to visit Belarus in recent years. After Minsk, Kellogg is likely to visit Kyiv as well. Donald Trump will not ask Israel to cease fire for negotiations with Iran. He called the talks between European and Iranian foreign ministers that took place the day before unhelpful, and once again stated his deadline. Within 2 weeks at most, he will decide whether to enter the war with Iran on Israel's side. This concerns airstrikes on underground nuclear facilities, which Trump is convinced Israel cannot penetrate without the United States. As for the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, Trump believes there is progress. What this progress is and why Trump advises Senator Lindsey Graham to keep his mouth shut will be explained further by TSN's correspondent in the United States, Olya Koshelenko.
Donald Trump will not ask Israel to stop striking Iran in order for peace talks to take place. This was exactly the demand made by the head of Iran's foreign ministry during a meeting with his European counterparts. When someone is winning, it's hard to ask them to stop, Trump said. The American leader did not think highly of the talks in Switzerland. He said that Iran only wants negotiations with America. Washington's demand to Iran remains unchanged. No nuclear development, not even for peaceful purposes.
They are sitting on the top of one of the largest piles of oil in the world. I just don't understand for what peaceful purposes they would need it. It's one thing when certain countries say we need a certain amount of nuclear energy because we need it for electricity, air conditioning and so on. But when you're sitting on the largest oil reserves in the world, it's hard to understand why you would need it.
Within the Republican Party and the Trump administration, there is no consensus on whether the United States should enter the war on Israel's side. Although some moderate Republicans support this idea, the radical MAGA wing, which is closest and most loyal to President Trump, is against it. War inevitably means the possibility of American soldiers being killed and Iranian retaliatory attacks on American military bases in the Middle East. And President Trump, in his inaugural address, said the success of the United States will be measured by the wars they do not enter. As for the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, there is progress, Donald Trump stated, but he did not specify what kind. And to some of his colleagues, in particular Senator Lindsey Graham, the author of the bill on devastating sanctions against Russia, he advised to keep their mouths shut because Graham had called on Ukraine to keep fighting.
People really need to be especially and particularly careful about what they say. They should always watch their mouths because if they're not cautious, they could very easily find themselves getting into trouble in all sorts of situations.
This week, Trump did not take part in the G7 meeting in Canada dedicated to Russia's war against Ukraine, supposedly because he was in a hurry to deal with the situation in the Middle East. He also did not respond to the intense Russian strikes on residential areas. He mentioned Putin in only one context. The Russian dictator, as a close friend of Iran, offered his mediation in resolving the war with Israel. But according to Trump, he advised Putin to deal with his own war first before getting involved in anything else. Next week, let me remind you, there will be a NATO summit in The Hague, where both President Trump and President Zelensky are expected to attend. The President of Ukraine has openly stated that he wants to negotiate with the President of the United States about acquiring new arms packages. What will be crucial is whether a US-Ukrainian meeting will take place in the Netherlands and whether Trump will want it. From Washington, United States, Olya Koshelenko, Maxim Shinkarenko, TSN 1+1.
Will Trump want to meet? That's the key question. So what do you think is going on in the mind of the American leader? Write your thoughts in the comments under this broadcast on YouTube, and of course give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Meanwhile, I will continue with the TSN broadcast. A loud night over Kremenchuk. Last night, the enemy resorted to terrorizing the Poltava region. Drones were launched in swarms, targeting energy infrastructure sites. Cruise missiles were flying in from the Black Sea, according to the Air Force. They passed through Mykolaiv and Kirovohrad regions, heading toward Kremenchuk. Debris was reported to have fallen in 3 locations. 1 person was injured. They are in moderate condition and under medical supervision. According to our air defenders, most of the incoming threats were shot down. However, after such a Russian combined attack, law enforcement officers began to find cluster munition elements from the ammunition, according to the police of Poltava region. The dangerous fragments look like metal spheres about 10 centimeters in diameter and closely resemble toys or balls, which makes them especially hazardous for children. Law enforcement officers warn you should not touch, move, or even approach them. The Russians launched 280 targets at Ukraine last night. Our air defense forces neutralized 260 of them, 145 were shot down by firepower, and 115 were suppressed by electronic warfare. They were launched as usual from Bryansk, Primorsko-Akhtarsk, Kursk, Orlat, and from temporarily occupied Crimea, Cape Chowder. Among this entire swarm were 140 Shaheds, a couple of Iskanders and Kinjal missiles, and 4 Calibre missiles launched from the Black Sea. All of this hardware was brought down by aviation, anti-aircraft units, electronic warfare teams, and mobile fire groups. The main direction of the strike was the Poltava region. 3 people were injured in the Donetsk region. The occupiers hit Rodinske with 2 FPV drones. 1 person was wounded. They also shelled Pokrovsk and Ozerne with artillery. There are victims there as well. There is significant destruction in the industrial zone of Sloviansk. The Russians sent 5 drones there. In Kostiantinivka, they struck a critical infrastructure facility. As a result of a guided aerial bomb explosion, a farming enterprise in Markove was damaged. There was also an injury in Sumy. In the evening, a Russian drone struck an apartment building in the city center. An elderly woman sustained shrapnel wounds. The blast wave damaged the roof and windows of 2 apartment buildings. All night and into the morning, the occupiers shelled the Nikopol district of the Dnipropetrovsk region with artillery and kamikaze drones. Private homes were damaged, but people survived. And in Zaporizhzhia region, the occupiers carried out more than 300 strikes. There is destruction of homes and infrastructure facilities. As a result of a Shahed drone attack on Friday evening, a pregnant woman was injured. Due to Russian shelling, 7 people were wounded in the Kherson region. The Russians struck the regional center with artillery. The Korabelny district was hit especially hard. 2 men were injured. At night, the occupiers struck the city center. 2 apartment buildings became targets. Windows were shattered there, walls were smashed, and floors were broken through. At least a dozen apartments are currently unfit for living. An 85-year-old woman who was wounded was hospitalized in moderate condition. A shell hit her apartment. Now, specialists are assessing whether the damaged homes can be restored.
The first one hit building number 24. The second one landed somewhere near the building. Good morning. And the third one hit us. One woman, the shell landed right in her apartment, but she managed to get out. Well, she had some heart issues. The ambulance arrived very quickly. The guys took her away, so for now everything is under control.
We were sitting there, and when the explosion happened, you could see the door. She was hitting the door by her leg, and I had my phone in my hands. Everything just flew out. Debris rained down. Nothing else is needed.
The rescuers have recently completed the search operation in the Solomianskaya district of the capital, where a Russian missile destroyed an entire apartment entrance on the night of June 17th. Rescue operations here lasted for 39 hours straight. Overall, it was a difficult night for Kyiv. 28 people were killed and 140 were injured. Fires broke out in 8 districts at 27 locations. Rescuers extinguished them with the help of 2 helicopters. Over 100 tons of water were dropped on the flames. Nearly 500 reports of property damage have been recorded. Among them, 150 are residential buildings. TSN correspondent Serhiy Morhun will report from the site where a Russian missile strike caused an apartment entrance to collapse.
A lot of people are still working near the most heavily damaged building in the capital, including law enforcement officers who are guarding the perimeter to prevent looting and to keep people from getting too close to the building itself where volunteers are working. They help clean up the buildings, throw out unnecessary items and board up the windows. And people also come to lay flowers to honor the memory of those who were killed here by the Russians. There are several improvised memorials with flowers. And overall, in the Solomiansky district alone, on that ill-fated night from Monday to Tuesday, more than 100 apartment buildings were damaged, as well as 11 educational institutions. And over 2,000 people applied for the one-time assistance provided in Kyiv in the amount of 10,000 hryvnias. 40 families had to be relocated. They are now living in hotels or in rented apartments. And as for the building that suffered the most, it is little by little starting to come back to life. The entrances that are farthest from the site of the missile strike are starting to have utilities reconnected, according to the district head.
From the first to the fourth entrance, electricity and water have already been restored, and the elevators are working. For the fifth and sixth entrances, electricity will be connected by the evening. Water is already available, and they're currently checking on the elevators. As for the sixth and eighth entrances, after an instrumental inspection is carried out, a decision will be made on whether electricity and water can be connected.
As for the entrance that suffered the most damage, according to preliminary information, it will be possible to restore it. But for now, there still need to be expert assessments of the foundation's condition, as well as a more thorough examination of the walls of the neighboring entrances, and this will take at least several weeks to a month. Only then will a final decision be made about what will happen with this entrance. Let me remind you that a Russian missile struck this entrance on the night of Tuesday. It claimed the lives of 23 people in this building alone. In total, 28 people were killed in Kyiv at that time, and more than 140 were injured. Some of them are still in the hospital, and those who have not yet applied for this assistance and believe they are entitled to it can contact the emergency headquarters. They are operating in the 3 districts that suffered the most on Tuesday. Where these headquarters are not operating, you need to contact the district council directly, and you can receive 10,000 hryvnias as initial assistance, or possibly 40,000 hryvnias if there are other damages or destruction. And you can also receive 20,000 hryvnias per month for housing rent for up to 1 year. Serhiy Morgon, Yevhen Litvinenko, TSN 1+1.
They want to sell the success in Sumy and Kharkiv regions to America and the world, but they have no real achievements there. This is how President Zelensky commented on the situation on the Kharkiv and Sumy fronts. Zelensky says that despite the loud statements of the Kremlin dictator, who claims he will supposedly capture all of Ukraine, this week the invaders advanced only 200 meters in the Sumy direction, but they are being met with a worthy resistance and are being pushed back. Overall, according to the president, there are currently almost 700,000 Russian occupiers in Ukraine and about 50,000 in the contact zone in the Kursk and Belgorod regions. Some directions are being assaulted mainly by small groups of occupiers without heavy equipment. They go on the attack using motorcycles and buggies, as seen in Pokrovsk, Novopavlivka and Torets. Near the latter, according to the analytical portal Deep State, the enemy has made some advances. Since yesterday, nearly 190 enemy attacks have been repelled. The defense forces managed to strike 18 areas where enemy personnel and weapons were concentrated. Additionally, 19 artillery systems, 5 armor vehicles and 119 vehicles were destroyed. This does not include those that were struck several days ago deep in the enemy's rear in the village of Velika Shishkivka, which is currently temporarily occupied. There, nearly 24 trucks and other vehicles carrying Russian military equipment were destroyed by fire. At least 20 bodies of Russians or foreigners who fought for Russia were handed over by the Russian Federation to Ukraine during the latest exchange of fallen soldiers' bodies. President Volodymyr Zelensky reported this during a conversation with journalists. The head of state showed personal belongings, including Russian passports, which our specialists found while examining the remains. In this way, Zelensky emphasized the Russians are doing everything to manipulate the data on the number of casualties. And moreover, they are unable to verify themselves whom they are sending. Let's return to one of the most important topics of the past few weeks. This is how long the large prisoner exchange has been ongoing. It is the 66th since the start of the full-scale invasion, but it has been stretched out over time. The total number of our people who are to be returned during this exchange is not being disclosed. How many stages it will have is also not being disclosed. But every day of such an exchange is about joy, tears, embraces, and hope. TSN correspondent Mariana Bukhan will share 3 stories of difficult waiting.
I am waiting for my husband.
I suddenly spot Victoria Lealina in the crowd holding a photo of her husband, Sasha. We live next door to each other as children. Our mutual friends told me that her husband went missing in the Pokrovsky direction last autumn. And recently, in a video by Russian propagandists, she saw and recognized him.
Very good.
Vika insists that it is definitely her Sasha in the video. She recognized him by his silhouette and voice, and immediately decided she had to come here. Even if he isn't exchanged, at least she could give his photos to those who have been released and hear from them that her husband is still alive.
I really want to see him, or at least get some news about him, for someone to tell me that they've seen him, that he's alive. I believe that he is alive.
Nearby in the crowd, a woman hugs and kisses a police officer. This isn't just a show of familiarity. Bogdan is Mrs. Valentina's son, and today they are both waiting for their husband and father.
In the morning they said there would be an exchange.
Please don't squeeze me.
They said, yes, your husband has already been exchanged.
So many shifts, and there wasn't even time to rest. Right after my night shift, I got behind the wheel and came straight here.
Hello, Mom. Yes, daughter. Is it true? Is that you?
Mom, it's true. I already spoke with Sashko.
And this is Lyudmila, who is about to see her brother Alexander.
I waited for my brother. I really did. I'm shaking, drinking water, still shaking, because these emotions are impossible to describe. I cried a lot when he disappeared and was missing for so long.
Finally, the long-awaited moment for everyone. Let's go. Congratulations. 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 Move to the left, move to the left, to the left. In this stage of the 66th exchange, there are only privates and sergeants. Everyone is between 40 and 65 years old. All are seriously ill or severely wounded. Almost everyone is limping as they walk, some are crying.
Thank you.
There are terrible and unpleasant diagnoses. Some of timovias are related in particular to the conditions of detention. There is gangrene, for example, which, in the modern world, people are starting to forget this word altogether.
First, Mrs. Valentina sees the man.
I waited for you, Kostya. I always waited for you, Kostya.
The freed Kostiantin hugs his wife, then his son, his daughters-in-law, and then his wife again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. They exchanged and everything is fine.
Then he finds his brother and Lyudmila.
I still can't believe it. Thank you all so much. I was welcomed so warmly that I even felt a bit embarrassed.
But Vika still hasn't seen her Sasha return. She handed out his photos to the freed men, will wait for a call from them, and keeps believing.
The most important thing is to believe. I will keep traveling. I will keep searching. No matter what, I will get what I want. I will find him.
Mariana Bukhan, Alexander Shian, Andriy Romanok, Alexei Osavchuk, Anatoly Korob, TSN 1+1.
Let's try!